get you back there now. I know it's on speakerphone. No, I know you're busy right now, and I just wanted to do kind of an interview, talk a little bit about, of course, the eclipse and what you plan to do there at the zoo. And I might start with,
Sure.
I know you're a director, and sometimes you hear the word zookeeper, and I wanted to make sure I understood the difference in what a director does at the zoo and what a zookeeper does, so that I kind of have an understanding of what your function there is. So
Sure. So the executive director is, I guess what you would say is the head of the zoo. So I manage all the operations for the zoo and lead the function for the organization. We have several different divisions for the zoo. We have a division for facilities and operations, which is in charge of all of the construction and maintenance, janitorial. So I oversee that division. We have a division for the animals, which is the division for animal care and conservation. That's the largest division of the zoo because it wouldn't be a zoo without the animals.
right.
Right. So we have that division of the zoo. We have another division, which is our guest services division, which is the front line of the zoo, which is the division that takes care of our guests when they come through our front gate, and also is in charge of our rides, such as our over the jumps carousel, the historic carousel, our train, the playgrounds, etc. And they take care of all of our guests and the guest safety and making sure our guests are comfortable and happy. And then we also have a division for education. Our conservation education division is responsible for all of our education outreach, our Zufari camps, for our on-site programs that we do for education, which is very important for the zoo because we want people to understand about the wonderful animals that we have here and the importance of the wild places and the wild animals we have here and why it's important to save them. And then we also have a membership division. The membership division is important for earning revenue for the zoo and also providing an important service to our guests. That division is an important part of the zoo because it is essential to providing a service for year-long membership and also giving the guests that great annual benefit of the discounted membership and other things. And then we finally have veterinary services. So the veterinary services division is something else that we have.
Well, I think that I haven't been to the Little Rock Zoo probably since I was a teenager, and that's probably 65 years ago. So I was pretty amazed at just the entry point and all the way through the zoo and all the paths. I have had kind of a late life disability with Parkinson's and some AFib and a lot of other things. So I like to do like other people with disabilities, go out and do things. And so I thought the availability, and I just because I didn't have a lot of time. I mean I'd just been to UMS, so I wanted to make kind of a quick trip and just do an overview. But I thought it's pretty amazing there to get into a cart there, and I could travel and stop. And I didn't do as much interior inside the building. I didn't have a lot of time. I wasn't sure about getting in and out of some of the doors, but I'm sure there's some things to work around or to work with. But I thought the conservation and the areas there of talking about the animals and other things was really important. And I wanted to make that as part of my podcast is to talk about how important that is, because I saw a lot of families, a lot of kids there, a lot of kids, and they were all just having a great time. And I think it's real important. One of the side notes, I guess, is when I got married, and it's getting close to 60 years ago. I went to St. Louis, and part of that trip up there, I think everybody accused me of going up there to go to the baseball games or something. But we went to the zoo, and they have one of the best zoos, as you know, in the country and maybe the world. But it's always an impact on people at any age. So I thought that was important, and I really I wanted to talk a little bit about people with disabilities, and I know you have done a lot of work there, and I was wondering about some of the membership things. I know that it's kind of set up for people where you can get in maybe as a senior or at a certain age. But any considerations there for people with disabilities, or what are your thoughts on membership there? Because that's a that's a that's a number I've found that has a $13 trillion market for people with disabilities now. So, and a lot of people, they're not looking for handouts; they're just looking for ways to do things that are comfortable in their lifestyle and something they can do. So, any thoughts about that? I know you've made some work there. It's obvious. So, you may have some other things that you want to talk about at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we welcome people with disabilities, and one thing at the Little Rock Zoo that we are working on is to not just be compliant for individuals with disabilities, but to go above and beyond to welcome people with disabilities. One of the things that we did recently is we took some attention to redo all of our pathways, and that was for a couple of reasons. Navigating pathways can be difficult for individuals with disabilities, and so we wanted to ensure that the pathways were friendly for individuals, not just with disabilities, but for all individuals. Those stroller moms and dads, navigating a pathway with a stroller can also be difficult, and so we wanted the pathways to be welcoming for all individuals. And we find that it's also more welcoming for individuals with disabilities. But we're also taking a lot of different steps to welcome individuals with disabilities. The zoo recently became the only attraction to be certified by what's called Culture City. Culture City is an organization that works on ensuring that your staff is trained in how to handle individuals who are neurodivergent. Neurodivergence is something that a lot of individuals have. It can mean that you are sensitive to sight, sound overloads. It can mean a lot of range of different things. But being certified by Culture City means that we know how to handle individuals that might be on a neurodivergent spectrum. And we are offering packets for individuals who have neurodivergent issues that you can check out for free when you come to the zoo, and it helps to make your zoo experience better. And we also have quiet zones throughout the zoo now that are identified so that you can come to the zoo, and if you need to get away from some of the hustle and bustle and experience the zoo a little bit differently, you can. And so that's just one of the ways that we are adjusting the zoo and the zoo environment to make it more inviting for people with disabilities. Other things that we're doing too is looking at ways that we can make the zoo more inviting for people that may have hearing or sight difficulties. So we're looking at how we can establish Braille maps and signage that's more inviting to those individuals. Also working with the School for the Deaf and the Blind on some of those things. And so we're hoping this year to roll out some more of those things.
Well, I know that in my background in technology that everybody's looking at artificial intelligence, and I found it kind of interesting lately in travel is because you have a smartwatch and you have other devices that capture a lot of information. And when I go to the airport, I'm not I'm not a person that may not need a wheelchair, but it's pretty obvious they can see how many steps I've taken in the last year, and they can see that I need a wheelchair, and it may much faster. But then again, I've gone to concerts, and they do nothing really for the people with disabilities. It's one of those things you tell them you've got a disability, and there's a lot of privacy issues, I'm sure, but under the ground there or under the cover is that a lot of people have access to your health records now, unfortunately. And what I'm thinking in the future is that it gets a little more. And I talked to a person that had a stroke, and he lives out in San Francisco, and we had a lengthy conversation on this because he does telehealth and telemedicine, and we talked about capturing some of this information and using it in a positive way. And I think that some of the things that's going to come about is things that you can do and maybe have access to and be qualified for that maybe some people might maybe have suspicion, but then you got the health records to show that. So I think there's a lot of things that I'm sure you're looking at, and other things in the technology aspect. But that was kind of an interesting thing, and I know that you're well ahead of the game. And I thought And walking through there, it looked like there's a lot of plans. And I know as a director, you've got a lot of responsibilities of raising money and assets. And since we will have an audience that might have interest in that, along with membership, what are some of the things that people can do to contribute or make the zoo better for people? Because as we know, with all the families and children and even the older people like myself, I learn a lot when I go there and sit at a zoo. So, any thoughts along those lines as what might be happening there?
It's such a great question on how you can help the zoo. And one of the first things that I tell people is just to visit. We've got 3 million people here in Arkansas, and if every single one of those individuals was to visit the zoo, that would help us tremendously. Whenever you come to the zoo, that admission that you pay at our front gate helps to feed our animals, it helps to our operation, it helps to invest in new exhibits. So just coming to the zoo is something that helps us tremendously. The second way to help the zoo is to buy that annual membership. Being a member is something that is hugely valuable. That also helps to support the zoo and our bottom line, and it's also a great value for just you and your family. Being a member means that you get free annual admission for you and your family year-round, so it's a great thing for you and the family. It's also a great gift. We also encourage people to buy memberships as a gift. It's a gift that keeps on giving year-round, so if you've got somebody that's got a birthday coming up or maybe a Christmas gift or something, it's a great gift to give. And then thirdly, we have a lot of other ways to give. You can give towards a capital campaign. We're going to be raising money for a new exhibit at our front entry coming up soon here. And we also have other ways that you can make gifts that range from $5 to $500,000 to $5 million. It's just how much money you want to give here at the zoo. We have lots of different ways that you can get involved and become a small donor to a major donor. So we have lots of different ways to give. And you can also give your time. We have lots of volunteer opportunities here at the zoo. We need volunteers in our horticulture department and our special events, such as our wild wines event that we do to raise money for the zoo. And even in our education department, we're always looking for volunteers. So there's lots of ways to get involved. And you can always learn more about that at our website at littlerockzoo.com.
Yeah, I looked over that somewhat, but I thought that was really informational too. And again, it's like myself, I had been to the UMS, which is very convenient there to drop off, and so the membership thing sounds interesting, and I know I'll be making a lot more trips, and it will be 65 years. Of course, that's a little long for me now, but it's amazing, what you barely remember of it, and now, of course, it was convenient because it was close to the when they had a lot more games at War Memorial, so I can recall it from that standpoint. But getting into the operations and walking around, I just wanted to, I did do a few videos, and of course some of the highlights was of course the penguins, and I don't know, people maybe don't think of those as much being here in Little Rock, but I made a few trips to South America, and so kind of understand the thing about the penguins, but since I've been walking like one here the last few years, it's kind of fun to watch them, and I captured some kids here, and they were just laughing, and I got the backside, so I didn't have to worry about catching any people's face or anything, but it was pretty amazing how they were so just laughing and enjoying that. The other place and I won't get into too much more on this call, but was over to the apes and gorillas, and they're very fascinating just to watch them, how they seem to be so peaceful. I don't know what would cause them to have issues. You sit there and watch them, and they kind of got their own place, and you're sitting there eating the grass or whatever. But in the background, one thing that kind of caught my attention, and maybe it's something you've already dealt with or thought about, but I was totally amazed at the noise that was coming from the interstate up there. It was almost, I said it's like a Bitcoin mining thing that you hear. And then I know it does probably later in the day, it's not a 24-hour thing, but has that ever been?
well, you could watch the gorillas all day. It's kind of funny. They stay out of each other's territory. I guess they see there's a lot of grass there, so they're not gonna go over there and fight over anything. They're kind of fascinating anyway.
Something that you ever thought about? I know it's kind of an issue of just where you're located, but it did seem to be a pretty excessive amount of noise, and I just wonder what your thoughts on that.
We definitely think the interstate noise is a problem, and we would like to see some kind of a barrier placed up between the zoo and the interstate, and that's something we are working with the highway department on. Of course, it all takes money, and so we're trying to figure out how we're going to pay for that and who's going to pay for that. But I do agree with you. I think the interstate noise is excessive, and there's a lot of studies that have shown that noise can have negative effects on animals. It can have negative effects on humans. And I think that that's something that is definitely a concern.
Well, I was, I just wanted to bring that point. I'm glad you are working on that, because when you do notice it there, and I did catch some video, and I left it where the sound was pretty obvious, but that was kind of an interesting part of that. Well, I'm going to get back to the one of the ideas here is the eclipse. I know you've got a big day planned for the eclipse, so I wanted to get into that because that's coming up on Monday, obviously the 8th. So you might give me a little bit of a snapshot on that, or whatever you want to say about that, because I think that's nice to bring attention, but also it's a day that everybody seems to be pointing toward at this point.
Sure. We've got some great events planned for the eclipse. We have some activities planned here at the zoo that day, some education activities, and we're also just kind of curious what's going to happen with the animals. They say that animals behave differently during eclipses, and we don't really know what to expect, but we're certainly going to be on the watch to see what does happen. We're going to be doing a catered lunch that day, and then also doing some other activities throughout the day for families. So we've got a whole host of activities going on that day, and we'll just be patiently waiting for the time for the eclipse to pass over, and then enjoying it here at the zoo.
So what are the costs associated? I know there's a special cost for the activities.
There is a special cost that day, so it's a $30 admission to get into the zoo that day. We are still honoring, though, the SNAP program benefit that day at our gate. So if you do qualify for our SNAP benefit, it is only a $2 admission that day. So that is still in effect if you do qualify for that, but it is a $30 admission otherwise.
Okay, I want to make that clear because I wasn't sure when I read that, but well, that's something that, particularly how the animals react. Being in technology, and everybody was worried about how it'll affect cell phones and how it'll affect a lot of things just for a brief period. But amazing when you start seeing all the information out there, how it has a certain ring to it, like the Y2K, which everybody went overboard. I was doing a lot of work internationally at that time, and there was no concern because they didn't have the old computer code or the COBOL code that worried about all the issues of the Y2K of having enough space to handle some information. But it's always amazing, and particularly in this type of event, to get an opportunity to see what it does affect and how it affects it. So I think that's a great point. I'll just wrap it up at this point, unless you have some other things you want to say about the zoos, because I want to make sure we get this out to people and maybe get an opportunity to, for them to participate in that. And also, as you mentioned, one of the important parts is just visiting the zoo. And I thought it was very nice, very enlightening, and looks like a lot of good plans coming on.
Well, I've appreciated the opportunity to talk about the zoo. You can always learn more about us at our website at littlerockzoo.com or finding us on Facebook.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, and I realize you've got a lot of things in the works, so we'll be checking back later.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.